Hello BookTube, it's Leah Cooper here, and today I am bringing you a book haul. Now, I like to talk about my book buying ban. It's like the 5-year perma book buying ban, and I don't break it very often, but this week I broke it. So I'm bringing you 5 books I recently purchased for $5. That's $5 total, which, you know, in the grand scheme of breaking a book buying ban isn't bad. As always with me, this is kind of a eclectic book haul. The first thing I found was The Crucibles Gold by Naomi Novik. I think this is the 7th book in the Temeraire series, and I don't actually know if this is technically like book 7 or if it's just because it says a novel of Temeraire, so I wonder if it's just like in the universe. Irregardless, I love Naomi Novik. I read Uprooted earlier this year. I've been slowly collecting the Temeraire books when I find them for a good used price, so that when I have some time I can basically binge all of them, because I have a feeling that I'm going to really enjoy them. So I have books 1 through 3. Now I have book 7. This was the most expensive book I got in this haul, and it was $3. The next thing I picked up was Lost in a Good Book by Jasper Fforde, and I got this for 50 cents. And I was really excited because it's a really nice floppy paperback of a Thursday Next novel. Now, I love the Thursday Next novels, and I like Jasper Fforde just in general. He's one of my auto-buy authors, which I made a whole video about, and I will link up above if you're interested in watching. So when I saw this for 50 cents, I honestly couldn't remember if I already owned this one or not. I own a couple of Thursday Next novels, and I own a couple of his nursery crimes books, but they're all in storage, and it's been a few years since I looked at them or read any of them. But I said, you know, it's 50 cents, I'll just snap it up and buy it. Got it home, double checked. I already own it. But since it was only 50 cents, I'm not really out anything, and it's really not worth driving back over there to return. So, to be honest, I'm probably just going to scrape off the tickets, stick it in my unhaul pile, and sell it back. It happens. The next thing I picked up was HHHH. Wait, I said that too many times. HHHH by Laurent Benet. I'm probably saying that name incorrectly. Now, this wasn't necessarily on my radar of things to buy or that I really wanted to read, though I've heard a couple people on BookTube talk about it. I believe Simon of Savage Reads talked about this, and I kind of want to say Amy from Shout Amy talked about it. I could be remembering that incorrectly though. But I had heard, you know, fairly positive things, that it was really interesting. It's just not, I'm not necessarily a historical fiction fan, especially not a serious historical fiction fan. I have no particular interest in World War II, so it wasn't on my things to buy, like to keep my eye out. But I saw it, and I decided to read the back cover for myself, just to kind of refresh my memory. And while it is all those things, serious historical fiction, serious World War II, it also says, but alongside the nerve-shredding preparations for the attack runs another story. When you are a novelist writing about real people, how do you resist the temptation to make things up? And that grabbed my interest. So it kind of, and I opened up a page and I read a couple paragraphs, and it seems to be a little bit meta and a little bit exploratory of what it means to be both a journalist and a novelist, and the intersections of, you know, writing historical fiction and historical reporting, essentially. And I am a sucker for meta explorations of intersections in writing and what it means to be a writer, and how we write and construct stories, and how we approach telling stories and telling narratives. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. So while I don't think the topic is necessarily like something I'm going to be super into, I do think the structure might be something I find real fascinating, and it was only 50 cents, you know? So picked it up. Not sure when I'm going to get to it, but I'm actually kind of excited for this eventually. I have a couple other more historical books set in the early 20th century, not World War II novels, but, you know, more serious historical works. And so I'm thinking I might set aside a month later on in the year or the beginning of next year, and I'll go ahead and read this at the same time I tackle those other novels. And then the next thing I got, again for 50 cents, this was totally just like a cover slap. It was a cover buy. It was the front cover and the back cover, which I don't do very often. Like, I really don't do this very often with a book that I haven't heard anything about and an author I don't recognize. But every time I have done it, I've been pleasantly surprised. It's how I found Jasper Fforde, and it's how I found Daily Martinez. So it does sometimes pay off. So the thing I picked up was Heart of Gold by Michael Pryor. This is kind of a chunky book, and just based off of the size, the cover, and a brief glance at the back, I suspect that this is YA fantasy. It is the second volume in a trilogy called The Laws of Magic. So it does have that going against it. It is a second book. But I read the back, and again, there was this phrase that just hooked me. So I'll read it to you. I have not looked this up, and I have no idea what the rest of the series is about or whatever, but at a loss after finishing their end of the year exams, Aubrey and George travel to the Gallian capital Lutetia, where it so happens that the lovely Caroline is studying natural history. Aubrey wants to pursue a cure for his condition, probably the plot of the first book, though his family has other ideas, and he's soon burdened with a royal mystery to solve, old letters to procure, a missing ornithologist to locate, and a spot of diplomatic espionage. These tasks should keep him occupied, but that would be underestimating Aubrey's sense of curiosity and uncanny knack of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So basically the phrase, a royal mystery to solve in a fantasy land, I was like, oh yeah, 50 cents, I'll pick that up. I figure I can grab the first book from the library, read it, see what I think, and then read this, because why the hell not? It's 488 pages. I was thinking, oh, maybe I can save it for a tome topple if I need to, but it's just not quite long enough. And then the last thing was, and this has been on my TBR basically since it was published, and I just have never gotten around to purchasing a copy or reading it, is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. So this is not a edition I would have preferred to get. I would have liked a trade paperback or something. I don't even know if this comes in trade paperback. It definitely comes in hardcover, which that would have been obscene. But, mass market paperback of a book that's 1,000 pages and incredibly tiny font is not necessarily my thing. But it was 25 cents Pocket Tuesday, which means pocketbooks or mass market paperbacks are all 25 cents in the store. So I picked this up. This really nice edition has no wear on the spine. It just has a little bit of curling, very minor curling on the edges for 25 cents. And this is a book I really want to read. Yeah, I got it. This will definitely be a book I probably save for the next tome topple, because 1,000 pages, man, yeah. I'm starting to get a little bit of a collection of huge, ginormous books, which is scary. Those are the 5 books I purchased for altogether $5. And even with this one duplicate copy I accidentally got, that's still, I think, pretty good. Even if it's, 4 books for $5, that's not too shabby. I have no idea when I'm going to get to any of them, to be honest. But it has made me come up with this idea that since I broke my book buying ban, I'm not going to make myself read, these 5 books, because they're just a very mishmash, and some of them are later in a series. But I have decided to challenge myself next month in September to read 5 books off my physical shelf that are not rereads or books that I know for sure I'm going to want to keep. I'm going to purposely try to read 5 books that I have not read before, that irregardless of my rating, I may or may not want to keep them, because I only keep books that I want to have the complete collection because it's one of my favorite series, or that I plan on rereading. So I'm going to try to do that in September as kind of a balance to purchasing 5 books. And I think that's a reasonable punishment for breaking my book buying ban. So let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these books, or if any of them sound interesting. Let me know what your thoughts are on, book hauls, and are you on a book buying ban, or do you buy way too many books or just enough books? And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.